Welcome to Indie Game Award 2026 winner interview. So I have Florian with me from Blue Backpack. Hi, Florian.
Hello.
Say hi to the audience.
Hey, audience.
So could you please introduce yourself, Blue Backpack team, and your award-winning game, The Berlin Apartment?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Florian. I am CEO of Blue Backpack, which is a small company, and we produce indie games. We are around 20 people right now, and we just released 2 games.
The Berlin Apartment
and The Berlin Apartment and Constance. Yes,
Constance,
that's right.
So what was the initial inspiration or the spark that led the team to develop a story that centered around a single apartment for 120 years of history?
Yeah, well, I think it stems a bit from like how people live in Berlin, because I mean, many of the apartments and houses there are very old. So they were built around 1900, some even 90 or 80 or something. So
wow.
All of us are living in sometimes very old buildings. And
so you're still living in a
yes,
very old...
I think most of the team are living in exactly these buildings that we
you
have.
grew up in the building?
No, I didn't grow up there, but I moved in there as a student at some point. And it was my colleague Hans who at some point must have been standing at the window looking out on the street. And he thought, well, how many people before me have been stood at exactly this spot in this apartment and looked down on the same street.
Right.
That was the initial thing that got it running, I think.
Well, is he very romantic?
I can't say.
Sentimental?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is something that comes with living in a city with such a rich history, right?
Right. So the game features Dilara and her father, Malik, as the anchor of the story. Why did you choose a father-daughter duo for the framing of the game? And how does their relationship influence the player perceives the past?
Yeah, we thought it would be interesting to look at the past through different lenses. So we have Dilara, who is a child. She doesn't know anything about history.
A little girl.
A little girl. It's during the corona pandemic, so she can't go to school.
Right.
And she has to come with her father, who renovates these apartments, and has to spend time with him involuntarily at the construction site. And so it's much about their relationship to each other, but it's also about these different lenses. So Dilara doesn't have any clue about the past. It's like a very innocent look on what happened before. So she can ask questions, and she can like just wonder about
the past.
The past. This has happened here before. Like, how did that happen? And with Malik, we have like someone who is experienced with digging through the past and finding traces of past lives. So we found this dynamic very appealing.
Developing a game that covers over a century of history involves immense research,
yes.
Especially on, the Berlin has this very rich history and as a creation. So what was the biggest narrative or technical challenge you faced while trying to keep the story feeling cohesive with the same 4 walls?
Yeah, I mean, you can do only so much research about history or like the specific living conditions. We visited like museum apartments, which are like apartments that are conserved in a specific
field research,
yeah,
like that,
in a specific time frame, like frozen in time. But also, this doesn't go back indefinitely. So, but we found some places that were like still in the same state as in the 50s or in the 40s or something like that. I think one thing that was really challenging, at least I heard that from the sound designers, was to create the sound atmosphere for like in the 30s or in the 40s, because of course you have some of this on film or something, but you don't necessarily have the atmosphere that you have in an apartment, and you don't know which sounds are coming from where and what is creating this atmosphere. So this was a lot of research and guessing, probably.
Throughout the development of the 120 years timeline, is there a specific era or a particular story that the team feel most emotionally about?
I think it's the 1933 time. It's very melancholic, right? It's about it's a person who has to leave the apartment involuntarily because like the whole environment they live in gets more and more hostile.
Right.
So they actually have to leave their stuff behind. They don't have the chance to pack so many things. They just have one suitcase, and they have to basically. It's an old man in that situation, and he has to pack his whole life into just one suitcase and then hurry to leave. So this is very emotional, and it was also very touching when writing it, and I think it touches many players and their hearts.
Right. So the Berlin apartment has been praised for its show, don't tell approach, so using relics to trigger memories. So how did you balance the ordinary lives of your characters with the massive textbook historical events of Berlin to make story to feel so personal?
Yeah, I think that was one of the main challenges, that we wanted to have like the real history of the city as some kind of a background, but come up with stories that feel personal and that players can connect with on an emotional level. So the stories are all, they may be inspired by real life events, but they are fictional, and of course they are kind of condensed for entertainment purposes.
The Berlin apartment isn't just one story, but an anthology of lives spanning 100 years. Winning Best Narrative kind of suggests that the jury from Indie Game Award was moved by the connective tissue between these eras. So was it challenging to ensure that the individual stories feel distinct while maintaining a singular, cohesive narrative voice for the entire game?
It was definitely a challenge because we wanted to have some connective tissue, but also we wanted each story to stand for its own. And it was hard not to make too much of connective tissue between it. So on the other hand, it was hard to have this story of Dilara and her father, which is kind of the connecting storyline, to cut it into pieces and by itself let it be their own story, right? Because it's kind of short. You only have short glimpses into their life while renovating the apartment, while other stories are like uninterrupted in their way. So yeah, I think that was the main challenge.
So to connect them together. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was like a movie to me when I played it.
Yeah, there are some subtle hints where there are connections between the episodes, but it's kind of hidden.
So the game launched in the late 2025. Mm-hmm. What has the player feedback feel like so far?
The player feedback and also the press feedback was pretty overwhelmingly good for us. So we didn't expect that. We are very happy with that. Yeah. So people seem to be emotionally touched by the game, and this
even they're not born or grew up in 120 years Berlin apartment.
And even if they don't have any connection to Germany or to Berlin at all, it's not necessary. So the stories seem to be kind of universal, so they can just touch players.
Very successful in a narrative way.
Yes.
Are there any new stories or rooms in the history that the team are interested in exploring next?
Right now we are like in the process of the post-release, so there are not so many things related to the apartment right now, but we are working on different stories. For example, one game that we are working on right now, it's something completely different. It's about the oracle in Delphi in ancient Greece. It's also about history, but it's kind of...
It's more like a myth.
It's a myth, but also it's kind of goofy and an interpretation of history from our side.
When you the team first know that you are one of the Indie Game Award 2026 winners, how do you feel about that?
Oh, we were very excited about that because the game just came out, so we didn't have time to apply at many prizes or awards or something. So this came as a surprise, a very pleasant surprise, and then being awarded with the prize for the best narrative game, this is something really special for us because it means that we achieved something there, what we wanted to do. Yes.
Telling the stories that you really like. Okay, so is there anything else you want to share with our audience, our players?
First of all, I want to thank everyone who gives the game a chance, and of course I want to thank all the other devs out there who strive to push the boundaries of what games can be and try to tell touching stories.
Wow.
Yes.
Thank you. So thank you for Florian joining us for the interview today. It's really nice to have you here, and we hope that all the players can continue support the Berlin apartment. So that will be all for today's interview. Let's say goodbye to our audience. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
That's all for today's video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And a quick heads up, the submission for Indie Game Award 2027 will open in July. Don't miss your chance to be part of the grand program. I will see you in the next video. Bye!